Thank you very much for joining us tonight for the Access Pacific User Group, our September meeting. Before we jump into the presentation, a little bit of housekeeping again. While we're in the presentation, if you just keep your camera off, that'll be great. Adrian, do you prefer people break in or wait to the end for questions?
Wait for the end if they put a question in. I mean, if they put questions in, I'll try to keep on top of that. But I won't necessarily jump in just because there's a question been asked. But yeah.
So should they unmute and ask questions or just?
No, I mean questions in the chat.
Okay. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and go through a couple of things that I noticed today. The roadmap, I've been talking about the Access roadmap for a couple of months. Today, I just saw when I opened Access this morning that version 2409 was released, and I now have the modern chart improvements available to me in that computer. I have not looked at them. I don't know how well disciplined they are yet, but I know that they were available to me today. The Monaco editor, the Monaco SQL editor is not in the version that I have, but that's anticipated any day now. So has anybody had a chance to look at the modern chart improvements? Is that something we should be excited about or holding fire on?
I think it's something to be excited about. There are a couple of they're not quite ready because there's lots of feedback with people saying, "Oh, well, this is great, but this would be helpful to blah blah blah." So I don't think they're fully happy with what they've got yet. But I get the feeling it's quite soon. I don't want to say too much in case I say anything which I shouldn't be sharing, but I think that's fair enough to say. It is very well progressed. It doesn't feel like it'll be very long.
Yeah,
Maria's going to do a presentation on modern charts next month for lunchtime, or maybe it's this month.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's the next lunchtime.
The next one, yeah.
I guess it's this month, last Tuesday.
And I think we can anticipate that, and we can anticipate the Monaco SQL editor sometime soon. But I don't think that one is as far along as the modern charts.
And I was talking to Maria about the modern charts, and even though I gave her my version number, George, and she told me that you and I are on the same version.
Yeah.
You actually have them, and I don't yet.
Yeah,
so they're like rolling them out. And I mean, just because you have a version that somebody else has with the charts doesn't mean you actually have them yet.
And that was true with the Monaco SQL editor as well. My excuse is that I'm closer to the mothership here in Seattle or in Redmond than anybody else, so I get them first, but I don't think that's quite valid. Anyway, we can look forward to seeing both of those, I think, in the next couple of months. The Discord channel is still there. I don't know if we need to talk about that anymore. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just saying it's worth mentioning. There might be people here that haven't.
Well, that's right. We do have some people that haven't been with us a lot. The Discord channel, Adrian, you're more involved with that, so why don't you just briefly give us an overview of what that's all about and how?
Well, I don't want to go into too much detail, but if anyone knows about Discord, we have a server that is dedicated to discussing and meeting with other Access developers. There's a permanent invitation there. So when I say permanent, it's an invitation that doesn't expire. Some invitations to Discord servers can expire. That one doesn't. Crystal has thankfully kindly made a copy of that in the chat. So that's you've lost the screen I was looking at. There we go.
Yeah, I know. I tried to highlight it and it just.
Crystal's put it in the chat. That's probably the most helpful thing, to be fair. Are you ready to pass over, George, or did you have?
Just one more thing. I was going to mention Kent's chapter is going to start this month. We talked about that earlier, but the chapter that Kent is managing will start up soon. Would you like to talk about that really quickly? And then we'll jump into the presentation.
Right, now that I'm on mute. Yes, so it'll be about the same, well, be the same day and time as this one, but offset by about 2 weeks. So the first one is on the 20th of September for us, which will actually be the evening of the Thursday of the 19th, I think, for those in the US. And I've got Greg Reagan showing us how to make captions, control captions actually work. He's got a totally different way of doing it, which actually works really quite well. So that's great. We're going to keep the presentation short, so we've got plenty of time afterwards for discussing more of that in detail or discussing other things, depending on what's going on. So yeah, I'm looking at short presentations and then having time to chat without it going into hours. And even though this one's on form design, one of my focuses is going to be on using SQL Server Express, which is what most of my clients use, because I mostly have small businesses as clients, and the costs of the full version of SQL Server is difficult to ascertain at times, and when you can, it's horrendously expensive. So yeah, focusing on Microsoft Access with SQL Server Express, but that will include a lot of general SQL Server stuff. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
Great. So we'll come back at the end of the presentation and talk about next month's presentations. Ron is going to speak to my group next month, and I think Greg to your group, and then we'll talk about future meetings after that. Let's not take any more of Adrian's time. I will turn the time over to you, Adrian, if you want to share your screen.
Sure, thank you.
Go.
Right, well, good evening, everybody. Good morning, wherever you are. So I'm going to start actually here by just showing you, that's my main top PowerPoint slide. This is a quick illustration of what this can do for you. I'm going to push that over there for now. This is something that was set up in code, VBA, and it gets you to open a menu. You can get it to do pretty much anything you want to do, but I figured we're not talking here about complicated stuff in the ribbon. All we're doing is getting it to give us the opportunity to take control, to give control. So this is a menu that does very little, and you just exit. So switching back to my presentation, legacy command bar usage in Access. I have to click it, otherwise it goes somewhere else. Why care about command bars? Custom command bars added using VBA and the command bar controls, command bar button, etc., that can be added to them show up in the add-ins ribbon as available to use immediately. They've been created and made visible. Although ribbons have replaced command bars in the main Office M365 applications, they are still used in the VBA IDE window. In other words, if I take you to the code, these are the old command bars with command bar buttons and command bar controls. We don't see that in Access now because we have the ribbon, but it's still there. So the feature is still available in Office. Okay. Why care about command bars? Continued. Generally speaking, ribbons cannot otherwise be changed programmatically. This is the crux of the issue here. The XML file that, I mean, people have done it. Adrian Bell has done very clever stuff, and other people have too, where you take the XML file, you can change it on the fly, you reload it. It's all a bit complicated from my perspective. And you have to reload it later, or the UI is available for use by the operator. So you can also change it on the fly if you use the user interface. But if you want the program to be in control so that the users get what you want them to have, then that's not much help to you. Custom command bars can be created as temporary additions. Thus, you can ensure they only affect the active project. there is an option when you create a command bar to tell it to be temporary, so that when you close the session, it disappears. I will be including not just that, but also, excuse me, code that handles deleting any taskbar, command bar, so that when these, how do I express this? These are mainly for that project. So you create a command bar to manage that project. You're not changing someone's access experience generally. You're purely changing the experience they have while they're running that particular project. Okay. This presentation shows an example that creates, when it's temporary, shows and hides it, includes code to tidy away regardless. Okay, some concepts. Command bars. These are items to and on which you can add command bar controls. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the idea. You've got a command bar, and on that you can have a number of buttons. You can have other command bar controls too, but mostly they're buttons. And certainly what I'm showing today is buttons, or a button even. Those added by code are referred to as custom command bars. Such custom command bars appear in the add-ins ribbon. I'm just going to very quickly switch across. So I've got one created one earlier. I'll get rid of that in a minute. And you'll notice that there's an add-ins toolbar here. When I'm showing you this later, I'll have that pinned. In fact, I'll pin it now. I don't normally run that way myself, but for this it helps. It helps to see what's there. So that is the add-ins ribbon. And this, just up to that vertical bar there, that is the custom toolbar. I don't know why it says plural there, but it's custom toolbar. And you can have multiple buttons on that. You could just have a smiley face. I often do for my own stuff. Just to be clear, I wanted it to, that should say, I've got that wrong. That should say main menu, but nevertheless, it's all changeable in code. So that's the single button that we have on this particular temporary command bar. Just wanted to illustrate that concept. Command bar controls. There are various types of command bar control that can be used. In this example, we'll simply use a command bar button. The action of a command bar button is determined by the .onAction property. That's quite an important concept. When we look at the code, which we will be doing, when we look at something blah, 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 .onAction, you'll know what we're talking about. More concepts. Command bar button action. Now, this is something I'll be covering when I go through some of the database with you. .onAction is a string value that starts with the equals character when used with a publicly available function procedure. A function procedure is where you say public space function space name of procedure. The returned value is always ignored on a command button. So it's got the on action, and if you say equals, it's expecting a function. But it will conveniently ignore whatever it returns. Or, I haven't said or here, I should have made that clearer, or simply the name of the subroutine used with a publicly available sub procedure. So if you say public, so private anything is, you can't access, forget that. Public sub blah, blah, blah. So the name of the subroutine is used. Now, a subroutine doesn't return values, as you'll know. It calls code, the code executes, blah, blah, blah. One of the things I found is that you cannot pass parameters to a subroutine. So if you wanted to, you could, for instance, with parameters, you could have different options. You could have multiple buttons calling the same code, but with different parameters set, so it does different things. That helps keep the number of buttons, you can see the buttons, but everything, I like these things all to funnel through a same procedure, one way or another, so that if you want to know what's going on with all these buttons from the command bar, it's all in one place. It may separate out from there, but it all starts in one place. So any globally available procedure is valid, but so is a procedure from the active project. In other words, message box is a globally available procedure. But what I'm using in my thing is not the message box, which I could have used, but one of my own. I've got a subroutine and a function. Public they're in a public module. Sorry, I blanked for a second there. They're both in a public module, the same one, MOD main, and they're called, oh, I can't remember what they're called. I think it's menu func and menu sub. We'll get to that in a minute anyway. So that you can see that they behave differently. Right, a common example for something outside the active project is .onAction equals double quotes equals message box, and then as you can see it as it's laid out there, you need double quotes doubled for where you're using a string internally to your string of what you pass to .onAction. But otherwise it's all there. I would imagine that's fairly clear and easy to recognize for you all. In this example, there is a function called menu_func. Oh, there we go. Got to what I was getting to. Found in the mod main module. .onAction equals, and then a string starting equals menu_func, open close parenthesis. If you're calling a function, you need those parentheses. However, and you can, another example would be another possibility there would be to have a parameter value within the parentheses that matches your defined function. There's also this, I didn't bring this up to date, there's also a menu sub, which without open parentheses allows you to call that, but it not only doesn't have the parentheses, doesn't have the equals either. Now, in Excel, the file, project, module, and procedure can all be specified if required. You probably, most of you are familiar with Excel. You've done referencing from within one sheet to another, sometimes even to another sheet which isn't even in the same workbook. Now, you can do that even if that file is on disk in Excel. You can do the same thing when you set up a menu thing in Excel. I haven't managed to find a way to do anything similar in Access. But there is a difference there, because when you're running an Access only has one current database, so project, per Access session, whereas Excel can have multiple workbooks. So I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, but I'm sure that's part of why it behaves differently. So let's have a look what my database is going to do, and it will be very, where are we looking? Yes, we're going to go and actually look at the database very shortly. So apologies for so much preamble. But what it does, it creates, deletes, shows, and hides a custom command bar with associated command bar button. The action when clicked is to call the menu func function or the menu sub. So I've found a way of doing having it work different ways, and I'll show you that in a minute. In those procedures is code to display a typical example of a menu form. Here's a bit. Now switch across for a demo. Okie doke. What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to say delete new command bar here. I'm going to close the database and open it from scratch, which is that one. So the first thing it does is it opens this command bar menu. This is the menu that controls adding, removing, hiding, showing, etc. But when I was playing with this, and this is relevant, I'm not just rambling here. When I was playing with this, I had to work out various different ways of trying to get this to work properly. And most of them didn't work, unfortunately, but the top ones did. So I'm going to start with number one, and this is a table. Actually, let me just very quickly open this table so that you can see it. I'm going to go there. I'm going to close that, because when I then open it again, it's going to kindly get rid of that other stuff. So the table on the left are various things that I tried, most of which aren't important because I found out a very restricted set that I could get to work, most of which I've described already. But you'll notice here at the moment that there is no add-ins toolbar listed. ribbon, I should say, no add-ins ribbon. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to start with create new command bar. Okay. And this tells me that it's managed to set the on action to that string. So you have to take away the quotes, and the value of dot on action is actually the string menu sub. No equals, no parentheses. And that's because it's a subroutine. And you'll now notice that add-ins, oops, I didn't mean to do that straight away. Add-ins has this custom toolbar, and that, when I run it, is going to open this form, and it's also going to tell me, I've added the parentheses myself. I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't very clear. So I've opened this form with where the on action is menu sub. Forget the parentheses, that's my error. Okay, this is a dummy form, got loads of dummy items on it. It's really just to illustrate that you can, from the ribbon, get into a part of your project which manages things. You can do whenever you like, but that's once you've got in here, you don't need lots and lots of things on the command bar, because you can put it on a menu on your form. Okay, so that's going to come up, and every time it comes up, it's going to show what the dot on action is in command bar. Okay, now I'm going to show deleting this so that you can see that it works. So delete new command bar. Now the add-ins toolbar is gone, and we've ended up at the home. But what I can also show is in the code, and I'll take you to this later, when you do create new command bar, as part of how it handles that, it will check see if there's already an existing command bar and delete that first. So you don't actually have to do delete new command bar. And if I'm just going to create this one again very quickly. And if I say exit, you'll notice that the add-ins disappears, because by closing out of that particular menu, there's also code to say, well, let's not leave anything around. Let's clear that up. The reason I explain that is because when we go through and look at things one after another, we're going back to the same one again. I want it to be here when it shows. Now this one we've seen, okay. Now the next one is a function. Now what I'm going to do is I can move this. This is record selectors, so I can go right, left, end, beginning, or I can do a drop down. Okay. In this occasion, I'm going to do menu func without any parameters, which you'll see down there. Okay. And now when I say create, I don't need to say delete first. If I say create, while it's working, it's going to show me this. But if you look up in the custom toolbars, you'll see that the other one's gone, but it can't update that bit until this is finished. So equals menu func, open, close parenthesis, all within the string. And that all works, but it has a different call. It calls menu func as opposed to menu sub. Okay. And then when I do it, the next one, menu func 3, this is to show that it can pass parameters. And again, equals menu func 3. And when I click on that, it shows that it's been called with the menu func procedure has been called, and the value of 3 has been passed to it. Okay. Now I can also hide that. It's still there. And if I say show, it comes back. However, if I delete and then try and say show, it doesn't come back, because there's a difference between deleted and simply hidden. Okay, now I'm going to get to the code in a short while. Does anyone have if anyone has anything they're not really following, or they've questions for, why are you doing such and such, I have a question from Crystal. Is the reason command bar is being modified instead of a new command bar being created because the name is the same? No, it's actually not being modified. It's being deleted and recreated, but when that, you only see what's on the screen when that, at the point that that message box comes up. What Access does and why it hasn't reflected that, because you're right, it probably should just disappear completely. Excuse me. But I'm not sure off the top of my head exactly where that message comes in. What is the, oh, hang on. What is the use case for an end user creating a menu? An end user creating a menu. I don't think there is one particularly. This is for developers. I don't know if that's what you mean. Hang on. Can you put multiple items there though? Right. Yes, you can. You can have multiple command. Let me create another one here. Let me create this again and then go into add-ins. On this command bar, there is one command bar button, but you can add multiple command bar buttons. I'm focusing on having only one because what I'm saying here is you can get away with only one if you open a menu. But frankly, you can have as many on there as you want. Okay, so if we're happy with that, I will go and have a look at the code for this. Now, let's have a look. Main menu, let's look at that quickly. Does ruggable. It basically just closes. It's just an illustration of what's possible. Command bar is another matter. Most of this is very straightforward. Like CMD, bunch of commands that move the record on the form. Oh, I went too far. Hang on, never mind. Let's do it this way. First of all, on open, I just hide the. Where is my thing? On open, I hide the shutter bar, basically. So then we're doing moving. There's a combo. There's buttons to go first, next, previous, last, and a combo. They all just allow you to select which record you want to play with. Okay, and set combo obviously is part of that. Now, then you have, let me switch back to here. After that, we've just looked at handling all those items. Then you've got the 4 items that do with command bar. Okay, so first of all, create. And it does handle here. When I was looking at the doing this code, I took the code from Excel originally, and it was able to specify which project, which file, etc., etc. So I've got a bit of code in there that does that, but it's not very active. So you'll notice here when I talked earlier about if it already exists, if you do a create, but there's already one there, it will check that and call manage toolbar delete. So we got a bit of ahead of ourselves. But that reminds me, let's go to the top. Sorry to jump around on you without telling you. Right, okay. SDR project is just makes a note of the project name. That was all stuff that I don't use because it didn't prove useful. However, AccessUserGroups.org is a new class command bar, and we'll look at that in a minute. But from the form, the commands on the command buttons on the form, I'm just going to go down to create. Here we go. This one. So what it does is, if it already exists, then call .manage toolbar. So this is with AccessCB. So the command bar class, which I've got, class command bar down below, it has a .manage toolbar procedure method. And if you pass it a task of delete, it will delete the toolbar, bizarrely enough. Manage toolbar, if you pass the name of, sorry, first of all, the fact that you want it to be a create rather than any other action. I use the name SDR project, which is the name of the project. I use that for both the name of the command bar and the command bar button. because I'm not very imaginative, I'm afraid. And then on action is me.txt on action. So what I'm doing there, basically, I'm saying this control here, where it shows equals menu func 3, that is what I want you to use when you are creating the command bar. And so that's what it does. Okay. And then put a message. I form a message, str message, saying on action equals on action. It's got a replace. This is using replace. So where it finds, does anyone need me to go through replace? It's a common function. I'll very briefly touch on it. Basically, it finds this squiggly on action squiggly and replaces that, because it finds it here, with .cbb on action. So it's set up the command bar and the command bar button, and it's gone to the command bar button and got the .on action property, and that's what it puts inside. That's what it replaces on action with in the message, which is why you saw what you saw when that ran. Now, if there is no record, then it puts out that error message instead. Then it does the error message box, the message box, and that's the end of that. Okay, so I'm going to skip now very quickly to the delete, because that's what we've already covered, and that's one of the most important things are create and delete. So delete is obj.cb, so that same object, manage toolbar, task delete. And we'll look at the code that does that later, and it's all stored, it's all maintained in a single class, so that if anyone wants to use this, they don't have to use this code. This is example code, but the class should give them everything they want, unless they come up with other ideas that I haven't thought of. Now, hide is a very straightforward one. You say hide. And show I'm leaving till last, because in a lot of cases, excuse me, especially when I had in the Excel situation, you might show and hide every time your Excel workbook got selected. So you might switch between workbooks, and when you switch away from it, it hides it. And when you switch towards it, so you select that workbook, it shows it. But it didn't want to be overly complicated. It didn't want to say, does it exist already? In which case show, if not, then create. So what it did, the code is written, the manage toolbar is if you want to call it and say show, but you provide all the information it needs to create it, there's essentially 3 optional parameters. If you provide that and you say show and it doesn't exist, it will switch straight to create for you instead. So it just makes it coding with it easier. You don't need to know, as long as you pass all the information. But in this case, to illustrate what we were doing, I didn't want to get tripped up by that. All it does is pass the first parameter, and the code, if it finds only one parameter and it doesn't have a command bar existing already, it can't do anything. It just fails. Okay, now that's pretty much all the code in here. There is one last one, form close, which is basically if the CBB is still there, then delete it, because I don't want to leave that to automatic tidying up. I want that to be, this form is open, you have the option of looking. When it's not open, that is all gone. The project is finished, and then it shows the what's it called? What do they call that thing? The shutter bar. Sorry, and then it shows the shutter bar and leaves you back as a standard developer. Now, before I take you into the class, I'm going to show you the other things that we've dealt with here and that what we've seen depend on, which is the 2 procedures, the public function and menu and subroutine, which get used. Now, do remember these are called by the command button, command bar button. So depending on how you set it up, it'll either call one or the other. Obviously, you can set the command bar button up or various command bar buttons up to do all sorts of other things. But this is what I got it to do, purely to illustrate its capabilities, its limitations, etc. So menu func, and we saw that this can only be invoked with this part of the string, doesn't have an equals in front, doesn't have parentheses afterwards, has to be public. No, that's wrong. This is the function I'm thinking sub. This one, on the contrary, has to be invoked with an equals in front and parentheses afterwards. Otherwise, it won't work. Okay. And it has an optional parameter. So this is so that when I'm showing it, if nothing's passed, it will still work. It just won't have any value to pass on. Okay. And by what I've done is made it a string parameter. You can have all sorts of parameters, but you have to make sure that the type of the parameter fits what you're passing it, and that is controlled by the other code in the first form that we saw. We've already looked at that. Now this has a Boolean return value, but as we saw earlier, whatever that returns is ignored. So it's a properly defined function, but that's ignored. So this calls the function down here, show main menu. Okay, and I'll get to that in a minute. I'm just going to show you, before I get there, the difference between the menu func and the menu sub. Menu sub, as I was explaining about the menu func when I got it wrong, menu sub is just what you see highlighted. It doesn't include parentheses afterwards. It will fail if you provide parentheses afterwards. So you can't provide, and you can't provide parameters either. And it doesn't have an equals in front of it. Okay. And I didn't finish commenting, obviously. It's specifically, okay, unfinished work. No return value, obviously. For testing purposes, I gave it the ability to handle a parameter if passed. I never found it able to handle a parameter when passed, but at least it's got that ability. And again, show main menu, it will pass its name. Oh, I didn't say that in the first place. If you look slightly above, let's go there now so that you don't have to wonder what I'm talking about. The first parameter it passes is the name of itself, menu func. So this is what was called menu func. This is what was called menu sub. And then it passes whatever's in strvar, which if anything was passed, then it will be that value. Otherwise, it'll just be an empty string. This is true of both, except in the former case, in this one, it is possible to pass a value. In the other, it's not. So, show main menu, this function opens or selects what you can do, like as with the command bar and command bar button, excuse me. If you open it when it's already opened, instead of closing it and reopening, what it'll do, it'll just select it. So that's so that if you're trying lots and lots of tests one after the other, you don't have to keep going around and doing, right, create, delete, select add-ins, create, delete. You can go straight from one to the other, just for convenience. So the parameters are passed, which you've seen. So is form open is you'll see that. Let me show you that. That's a very simple. It accesses forms with the form name, and if it errors, then it's not open. If it doesn't error, then it's open, and that's all that does. So back to here. If is form open, then we do a select object of that form. Okay. So we say in database window false, obviously, because we want to actually select the open form. If it's not open, where's my menu cursor gone? If it's not open, then we open that form. Now I've defined at the top, you probably saw con main menu is a constant, and that's the name of the other form. If I just very quickly show you, that's not helpful because it's not there. If I press F11, it will come up. The other one there is called FRM main menu, and that's what's in that string at the top there. Okay. Once that's done, it uses, so with forms con main menu, it creates a with of that object. .lbl called info.caption equals, and then I basically do. I don't know if any of you have come across multi-replace. It's one of my own codes. I won't go into it in detail now. What it does is basically it does a replace, but for multiple pairs of parameters. So it starts with this string, which is concatenated there, so it's that full string, and then where it finds the word form, it replaces it with the con main menu, which is FRM main menu, as we saw. Where it finds the word proc, it replaces it with strproc, param, strparam, and NL is special one. I always put it last, is VB new line, so it's a carriage return line feed sequence. And so that's how come when you click on the button, let me show you what I'm talking about. When you click on there, it comes up, it tells you what it's been passed there, and that it's just a way of showing you that it works and exactly how it's worked. Okay. Now, is form open? We've looked at loads of other stuff in here, which is it's not that much actually because I've got rid of it. Multi-replace we've looked at. We discussed. We don't need to go into that in too much detail unless anyone's curious later. Now, the meat, if I may refer to it as such, of this is class CommandBar, and it's really not that complicated. Now, it's always easy for someone who's written something to say that's not complicated. It looks perfectly exactly as it should, but it could be gobbledygook to everyone else. But I don't see it as particularly complicated. Let's start at the top. So we've got a class. We've got two objects at the top here, object references, CBVar CommandBar as Office.CommandBar and CBBVar as Office CommandBar button. Quite simple to recognize and easy to work with. To make it useful for more things that I'm using it for, it gives you the option. It gives the option of having properties .cb and CBB, which are basically returning the object variables of CommandBar CBVar and CommandBarButton CBBVar. Okay, that's at the top. That's not so much the workings of it as the frills that need to be there. The rest of it, and if I'm right, is all in Manage Toolbar. So we discussed earlier. Thank you, Alex. Yes, I'm more than happy to share. You all know that this will be made available, both the code and the presentation. George has a copy of that, and he's looking at getting that available in the file. So, and you're all more than welcome to use that. And if you want multi-replace, you're very welcome to it. So this Manage Toolbar, as we saw before, has, sorry, I've got a cursor in the way of everyone, manages itself. It's a central point that manages showing, hiding, creating, and deleting the toolbar, CommandBar, and the button, CommandBar button for your project. Okay, so, and it does give although I didn't use it in my code, it gives the return value of whether it worked or not. I could have put code up saying, no, that didn't work. Particularly, let me just illustrate what I mean. If we go to one of these, which was one of the things I tried, if I say create new command bar, that's not going to work. It's set that up. Okay, so it has actually worked technically. However, if I click on that, it gives me an error message. So that, yes, the create worked. When can I do one? If I said delete and then show, at that point I haven't got it telling me anything, but it could. But if you want it to say, oh no, that didn't create, nothing here to show or anything like that, you can do that because it will fail when you try and say show. Okay, I'm going to create that back. No, not that one. Let's go to that one and then say create that. Bish bash bosh add-ins. Right, that's so we're there where we're all familiar with. At least I'm familiar with it. Okay, so the way I've done this, let me first start by explaining this bit. The STR task is the create, delete, show, hide. However, when you create it, you need more information. So we have the option of having passing that information for a create, and we can also do it for a show. You can do it for the others as well. It was completely meaningless. But if you were to say str task equals show and provide it all the information it needs to create, it will do that. And we'll see that shortly afterwards, Yeah. Parameters here, the only one here that we care about is dim CB this as Office CommandBar. Right. Yes, indeed. Now, you'll be pleased to hear that a lot of this code is actually only relevant when you're in a situation where it actually shows command bars rather than ribbons. Okay, so I will get to that in a minute, but I don't know if you remember, well, I can show you here. Look, you can put these command bars, you can put it down the side, the right-hand side, the left-hand side. I've probably mucked this up now. I should have, but you can put these command bars down the left, right, bit like you can with the start bar, taskbar on your Windows. Okay, so what that bit of code is doing, when I get to it, I'll show you. I've come in too early on that. Let me take a step back and I'll go from the top. It'll make it easier. But I do have an object there that needs to be handled command bars. Right. If we have a value provided, what does it do if it doesn't? If str on action. Okay. So this is saying if we have one of those, then and only then have a look to see if the file name or the project needs to be updated. It can work out the file name from I can't remember. It doesn't even bother with that. This is mainly for the Excel, and the project name it gets from VBE.AccDB project. Okay, this stuff actually, in none of the stuff that works uses this, so I think we can mainly forget about that. The next thing it does, select case str task. I'm going to assume that most of you, hang on, can you move the command bars in the database window too? No. Okay. I'm pretty sure you can't do that. Okay. Jeffrey, if you could reply, if you can reply to questions in the same, as a reply rather than a separate created thread, that would be helpful. Okay. So select case means you give it a value and then you have a list of cases underneath, and the first one it matches, it will trigger that code, and then when it's finished that code, it gets to the next case statement, or end select, it will skip to the next bit of code. So case create, this is the most important and the most complicated part of it. And the first thing it says is, if we want to do a create, but any one of, oh, well done, Crystal, you do exactly, yeah, you don't have to read it. Sorry, there's a chat going on and it's not helpful. So if any of the other three values, so these values at the top here, if any of these is not set, or set to an empty string, then we exit that function because we can't do what we need to do without that information. Okay. So this bit, and I'm gonna, right, okay. Sorry to move things up and down on you. Hopefully when I get to explain it, it will have settled so that it all is clear. This bit is code, which basically goes through the command bars. And for now, imagine that we're doing it in this VBA IDE window. And it goes through all the available command bars, even the ones that are not currently showing. So there are built-in ones that aren't necessarily showing. It goes through all the ones that are available and finds out where their top left is and how wide they are, and thus determines a position. Okay, it works out the what does it set? int row index and int left. So it works out, because what it basically did, it would put this extra thing on at the end of the bottom command bar. You can have multiple rows of command bars, and what we wanted to do was add it to the right hand side of the bottom one. And to do that, it would go and find the parameters. This isn't, although it runs, this isn't really relevant to what we're doing. You can chop that if you want to. So, as in the comments here, create the actual temporary command bar object and set options such as position, and also add the new command bar button with its options. So we start with a new one. We don't say a new blah blah blah, because the way this works is you say command bars dot add, and that creates one and adds it to the collection, to the command bars collection. Okay, so with CBVar, which is the command bar, let me just check that we haven't got CBVar used already. We do. That's not helpful. Didn't realize that, but I imagine that doesn't do us any harm or damage. So we're here. Oh no, of course it is. It's using, sorry, my confusion there. It's using the CBVar that we defined at the top. So with CBVar, which now has an actual object reference, it's going to say top equals 0, row index is int row index, that was determined up there, although spuriously, because it's irrelevant, and adds the int left to, sorry, dot left is int left, protection is MSO bar no customize. So it doesn't allow it doesn't allow the user to fiddle around with it, customize it. Now I'm creating a new object here, set CBBVar. Remember at the top, I will come back to this in a second. This was another private object. These lines don't create the object. They merely create what is essentially a reference to the object. Okay, so it's only here that an object is created for them to be pointing at. Okay, again, this controls.add is very similar to the command bars.add. It will create one for you. This is all you have to tell it. I'm telling it it's a control button. The command bar control is a button. Okay, thank you, George. Right. With CBBVar, the command button, it adds a face ID, that's the smiley face. On action is str on action. Tooltip text, it gives you that other stuff. Style, MSO button icon, and caption below. That can be changed without losing too much of what you've got. And once you've done all that, it says visible to true. That is your command bar and command bar button created. I'm running a bit short of time, but I can go through the last quite quickly and easily. I'm going to do the hide quickly because it's very quick. If it doesn't exist, then don't do it. So if you've got no CBVar, you're not going to be setting it visible. But otherwise, set it visible equals false. That's hide. For a delete, you delete the command bar button first, then the command bar. So if not CBBVar is nothing, then call that delete and then set it to nothing. If CBVar is nothing, then exit function. Otherwise, delete it and set it to nothing. Manage toolbar is true. If you've got to here and everything's worked, that's great and it's true. Otherwise, it won't be. Now, the last one we have to look at very briefly is show. Show gets the same parameters. They all have the same parameters available. If CBVar is nothing, it calls itself manage toolbar using create with the same parameters afterwards. If those parameters were empty when it was passed, when it gets to create, it'll fail because it'll come in here, create. Oh, have you got any parameters here? No, bugger off. Pardon my French, in French, obviously. So that will fail on you, in which case it checks the return value and will exit function if it doesn't work. Otherwise, it will set CBVAR equals visible. Now, that is all the code. I haven't shown you, I haven't got a lot of time, but I have shown you one of these that didn't work. So I now have, I think that's time for me to not forget what I did last time. Demo, switch to access. Oh, I should have gone to there. Right, okay. Summary, what we've just seen: custom command bars, command bar controls, creating, deleting, hiding, and re-showing of command bars and command bar buttons, VBA code to manage all of this for you with examples for usage. And that's pretty much the end, I think. I would want to have a quick, George, am I good to go through the questions now?
Here I am offering some advice and suggestions to the air. Yeah, and
I
whatever
figured you
time you want to
probably-
take. Yeah, whatever time you want to take to round it out.
Okay, where did I come in? What is the use case? I am guessing so that the commands can respond to where the user is in the application to only show relevant items. I'm not sure. I did answer that verbally. There is no use case. This isn't for end users. This is for people designing their databases. Put multiple items there though, right? Yes. Can there be multiple items? Chris, it'll beat me to yes, good. Perhaps parameters need to be a variant where it doesn't work. That's down to you, Crystal. If you want to put variant, it all depends on your usage of it. Multi-replace looks cool. Multi-replace is inside the example database that you will have access to. So feel free to go and have a play with that. And George has responded. With the command bars in the database windows too. I will cover that in more detail because although you can't, let me close that and open it again because right. Although you can't do that, right, so there's your command bar inside the ribbon. That's where it goes. I've never seen anything that allows you to move either the command bar itself is only the size it needs to be to fit that button. That I think that's always the case. You could possibly, you can obviously add command bar buttons to make it bigger, but I don't think there's no drag and drop. There's no ability to move things within there. Although I've not really explored, if you had multiple command bars, it may be that you could specify where they fit. I haven't any experience of that, I'm afraid. Any particular references required to use these objects? I don't believe so, Alex. Let me just
No, there isn't. I was going to say one quick thing about the ribbon there and the add-in toolbar. You know, it's so when you
Jeffrey,
add.
do you mind holding on just a second? I will get to you very shortly. I just want to make sure, because I think I do actually, Microsoft Office 16. I'm not sure. I think the 16 object library might be required because it is an object. It is an Office object that you're dealing with. Sorry, Jeff, you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, going back to the toolbar on the add-ins there, because you didn't really show. So one of the things I would say is, you know, so when you add multiple commands here, it adds them across, right? So it spreads them all the way straight across, which really is annoying actually, because then you've got these commands going all the way across. I would rather see them down. I thought there was a way to stack them downward. Do you know what that is?
I know what you're talking about. I didn't know that it didn't happen automatically, to be honest. My focus has been on getting something that basically a link, a hook, as in provide, not to make this very flashy, because I don't think these aren't fundamentally that flashy, because you're very limited. Command bar buttons are pretty limited, and command bars themselves, when you're used to using a ribbon, they're quite limited. But you can add, I mean, it doesn't have to be one of your own buttons. You can add you can add something from one of the other ribbons if you want. I think if you could add access into your command bar thing. How you move things around from there, I don't know. And I would agree with you that having this go across like that is a bit naff use of space.
Right.
I don't have any experience there, I'm afraid.
I thought there was some parameter and I was looking for it and I could not find it. So maybe it's only, or maybe you can't, maybe it was only with the old stuff. You could choose layouts better, but For some reason, I thought there was a way to stack them downward, and I was wondering if anybody knew what that was.
If anyone knows, please pipe up.
Could it be begin group?
Let's see. That's a very good question, or suggestion. You say begin group. I'm looking that up.
That is a method of the command bar.
No. Where's mine?
Yeah, Kent, I think the big group just adds a separator line between them, if I recall.
So your class, Adrian, it only has one variable for a command button.
Give me a second, Kent. I'm just replying to Alex to give him a copy of what I have there. I'm not saying, Alex, that these are necessarily all required, but if there certainly won't be anything more than is required on that. Sorry, Kent, go for it.
So in your class, you've only got one variable for a command button, and you've only demonstrated adding one button to the add-ins tab.
Yes.
Does your class handle adding multiple buttons?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure. Does it?
Because we don't have a buttons collection there.
No, it doesn't, because it doesn't. I've looked at this as a basic, it started out as a proof of concept, and I wanted to provide something, the ability. It was literally my view of it, limited though that may be, was someone wanted to be able to put a hook in there to get to their code. So one hook was all over. I don't imagine that refactoring this to handle a collection would be extraordinarily difficult. If there were a great requirement for it, I might even do it myself, but I'm not sure. For me, and I'm me, other people see things differently, but for me, the whole point of it is it's a success because you just put one button in there that then calls whatever menu system you want to set up.
Yeah.
It gives the user that access in there.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing about that to respond? Actually, you don't even need to select that. That's the thing. You don't have to store the names. If you just go to, there's actually delete. So if you look on the command bars object, there's like, the you add the command bar. There's also delete. And when you can delete, you can specify the name of the one you want to delete. So if you want to save the names out in a collection, you can, but actually it's not even necessary because you can just tell Access the one you want to delete. However, whatever name it is. So when you have multiple, you could be switching them around just by passing the name.
You're using its and it's rather than specifying clearly.
Sorry, the command bar object.
I thought that's what. But when you said you can pass the name, in my experience, you don't pass the name. You call the delete method of the command bar object.
Yeah, with the name of the command bar.
No, sorry. Let me.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, can you share the screen for a second? You pass the name of the command bar to the command bar object and call delete from that. That's how that works. You want to pass the screen over? I'll show
Jeffrey,
you exactly how this works.
You're misconstruing something here. You can say command bars.
Yeah, what you've gotten here is a reference to that exact one object command bar, and you call it the delete method. But that's not necessary here, Adrian. What you can do from the Access application object is you can call the command bars collection by the name of the command bar you want and call delete, and you don't need to store any of that. In fact, you don't even need this object that you've made here, right? You don't need that. It's already in Access. Access has stored it for you already.
Well, it's in a collection, and that is a way of doing it. It seems to me to be a more clumsy way than that. Because
actually, this requires more memory.
That's something which may be true, Jeff. In my coding style, I don't focus so much on memory nowadays. I do it on readability and ease of understanding.
Well, you said mine was more clumsy. I'm just saying this is more code and more memory and more of a lot of stuff. You don't really need all this crap. That's why I
Perhaps
sent you
we
that
should agree
database before too.
to say that we see things differently.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Well, that's why we have these meetings, so we can discuss
Indeed.
our differences.
May, if you don't mind, sorry, if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to go through and make sure that there are no
There were-
questions
There
left
were a couple
unanswered.
more. There was at least one more. Ron,
Right. So thanks, Jeffrey G.A. Lawrence, for put it.
Ron asked if you need to remove all command buttons before deleting the bar.
If you don't mind, I'll go through the things as I find them. Otherwise, it's out of my control, as it were. As a part of access. What was that a question to? Oh, I don't know. No special references are required. I'm not sure that's true. Can I say something? I don't see raise hand. Crystal wanted to say something. Are you happy you've been covered, Crystal?
No, I want to say something. I want to say
Okay.
thank you.
When you
This is such an eye-opener. I mean, sometimes the best things are what we've had for a long time, but forgotten about. And it's great to be able to modify a ribbon tab using VBA on the fly without digging into the complex ribbon stuff. And although this method doesn't give us much control over the ribbon, it's a great way to change things dynamically. And perhaps Kent's group comment might give more capabilities. And thanks also to Jeff. I'd like to see more of what you're talking about, perhaps in the after party. And thank you, Adrian, for sharing your code.
Thank you. Oh, well, you're always welcome to my code. I've never been particular about that, to be honest. Thank you, Crystal. I'm just I'm conscious. I want to get. I think I'm near the bottom now.
Nope.
I want to get to Ron's question.
Yep.
Do all command buttons need to be removed before deleting the bar? I don't believe so, Ron. But I have an approach where I like to be tidy and explicit. It's very possible, but just going straight to delete the command bar would be fine. Okay. The ribbons add-in tab is just to support backward compatibility with old versions before the ribbon. So no position location option. Yes, Brian, that's exactly what I was trying to explain. There's no the positioning of the command bars. It's not. They've been in Office for a long time. They're still in Office. Probably, I can only surmise that because the VBA IDE still uses them. That's the primary. They don't use the ribbon in this screen I'm showing at the moment. It doesn't use the ribbon. Thank goodness. So it still has Office still supports that same functionality. But yes, the position is almost irrelevant.
Yeah, so when ribbons were introduced in 2007, this add-ins tab on the ribbon was a place to stick all of your existing command bars. So if you had command bars in your application, they all got stuck in this add-in tab on the ribbon. That's where it came from.
I don't know if people have proper add-ins. Kevin Bell and various other people have things that they produce as add-ins. I don't know if they might not go in there as well. I don't tend to use add-ins much myself, so I don't have experience with that. But certainly, yes, this is as what we've seen today. Is that yes? What if you have a command bar that you make visible? I imagine the old command bars are all still there, and if you made one visible, it would suddenly turn up in your add-ins ribbon. But yeah, that pretty much describes what I've been saying, Ken. Thing. Obviously, only when you talk.
No, I'm the loose collection.
Are there any other questions, comments here?
So the object model seems to be that the application has a command bars collection, and then the command bars each have a controls collection that you can add stuff into. And a control, so your command bars, you can do controls.add, and then you can add a command button. And there is a method there to do a begin group. So all the command bars being stuck in that one tab on the ribbon, but it looks as though you can create separate groups for the commands in that one tab. I think that's what's going on.
Yes, in the same way that you used to be able to in command bars before, and because you can, I'm not going to get, look, you said that's a separate.
I'm trying the begin group right now. It doesn't work for me that way. It may have worked that way previously, but now it's still the same thing. Even if you use begin group, it looks like it still adds them across.
Well, bugger.
Yeah, I would expect them to be honest, Jeff.
Yeah, well,
it's good. It's worth checking. Worth checking, but this is
exactly
what
I want to see it
in the old style command bar.
I do have an old database that used command bars and just imported them in the add-on. It looks like if you had multiple command bars, it stacks them.
As I say, I haven't really experienced that, but it doesn't surprise me. Makes sense. But so Jeff, sorry, I don't mean to cut away from what you're saying. So can you describe, if I go back to here, can you that didn't work. Why is that not working? Let me try that again. There we go. Right. So can you describe, Ron, what you're seeing when you say you've got multiple command bars? What would you see relative to what's on the screen up there at the moment?
Well, where you have your command bars menu, if I had another command bar, it would lay underneath it and work its way across the screen.
Oh, I see. So this is relative to what Jeff was saying. If you had a single command bar, it would go across like that. But if you had another command bar, it would go underneath.
Correct.
Aha. And the custom toolbars, I assumed that was to do with this command bar, but it's probably the ribbon. That's the custom toolbars. That's part of what the ribbon gives us. And then you can have multiple vertical a column.
You could definitely do that in the ribbon code, no problem. But for the add-in command bars was my question, actually.
Yeah. Well, you really don't have any control over vertical alignment. They're just like the old. If you stacked a bunch of old toolbars like in VBA,
right,
you really don't have any control over where they end up.
Oh, Ron,
I thought there was a way to stack them instead of go across. I thought there was a way to make them stack.
Yeah. Well, just what I'm seeing on this old database, because you left the command bars intact.
Is there a height property for the command bar? Because if there were, it may be that you could specify that. But all I've seen is that it takes the size, so width and height of whatever's in it. So it might be worth looking at that, Jeff. You are still there. If you were of a mind, yeah, certainly. Let's be clear here. Yes, there is possibly scope to expand on this, but what I'm illustrating here is just the basic concept. I haven't tried to do lots and lots of different toolbars. I'm going to call them toolbars. No, command bar. Okay, command bars. I haven't tried to play with lots and lots of different options. And by the way, Brian, sorry I wasn't trying to criticize you I wasn't trying to moan at you for your volume going. It's just that it made it very difficult to work when that was going on. If you see what I mean. I've shown under the database tools tab, add-ins, database tool tab.
Yeah, he's talking about regular add-ins, Adrian, not your.
Thank you, Crystal. Excellent. So it wouldn't be in this. Oh, that's good to know, Brian. Good to know.
I would suspect if you created 2 instances of your command bar class, it would stack automatically.
Well, does anyone want me to spend 5 minutes maybe trying to create a new one to see, or is it?
Well, the application has a command bars collection, so you could just append in another command bar. It would need a different name.
Yeah, I can show you right now. I have it up on my screen. I have a little demo. You guys never checked my demo, Adrian. it tells me you guys didn't look at my demo that I sent, because I made a demo that adds buttons, it adds text boxes, and it adds list controls, and it shows all the pictures. I got a list of all the images you can use for the image ID, which is like 10,000 images or something. It's ridiculous. It's huge.
Do you think
Go ahead.
Because I don't remember this from about, what was it, a year ago?
It's been several months. It's been a while. I sent you guys, I don't know, since we were talking about it, it's been a while back.
Okay, rather than argue about how long it's been, let's see if Jeff can share.
I was pulling his leg.
Let's see here.
I'm going to agree with you, George. Yeah, I would actually very much like to see what Jeff has to show.
And
do I need to stop sharing?
Yes, please.
I'm
If you will
stop sharing
stop. So, well, actually, it's not necessary. Okay.
And can we add an add-ins tab to other custom ribbons, or does it only work with the built-in ribbon? Oh, this is good.
Yeah, so this is what I made a while back. I thought I sent everybody a demo of this, but apparently nobody looked at it. So I basically have a pretty simple little module here. It basically just adds a button to a command bar. There's one for remove a command bar. One, I don't know. It's all pretty simple. You can just look. I can send you guys a copy of this. But it just basically adds and removes command bars. And
that'd be great. It was I tried to find all of the MSO image thingies.
Oh, that's impossible. Yeah, absolutely. I know what you're saying. To have a list of all those is really useful, actually. Sorry, somehow I have this thing over my screen. It's like in my. Okay, let me move that off. Okay, let's see here. So to get all these image sets, somebody had put these on the web. And so I just grabbed them all because, I didn't want to lose them. I want to just close that I stole these images from the internet, so you may not want to reshare them. But let's see. So you can add a text like a label control. Whoops. Or a text box control, I should say, like this. Let's see. Does it work? Yeah, so you got this guy here, and you can add a label on this too and attach it. I didn't do that. And then you can also do like a list. But look, did you notice that? Notice how this one came below the other ones.
Is that in a different?
But when I add a button, it adds it across. Maybe I don't have the code set right here. Maybe that.
What did you do, Jeff?
Begin group, right? And I even made this as a parameter in this function here. These are just like the button to add a button. If I say true, maybe I need to say false here. Let's just try that. Let's see if that's this.
False is standard, isn't it? I suppose it wouldn't be if you had that.
Let's see. Let me try to add a button again. No, they just add a cross like this. But when I added the label or this text box, I said it's a label. It's a text box. Text box. Yeah. If I add one of these, now it's adding down there too.
But Jeff, you're adding a new command bar.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. It's just that you're right. In this case, it's a different command bar. It's the same name though, right? The command bar name. So again, that's the thing. Each one of these objects, when you add and remove items to this add-ins command bar through the command bar's object, you have to pass it the command bar name, but then you also pass it the name of like the object, so like the button name or the text box name or the drop down name. So let's do a list here. Actually, I want to remove a few of these. Just delete a few off there. Let's see here. So you could do like A, B, C, right? And then let's add this. So then you can see like these things here, and you can set your on action thing to do whatever on all this stuff. But notice when I added that list box, also notice it added down. So I guess if the command bar name is different, then it adds it in a downward pattern like this. And if the command bar name is the same, it just goes straight across, I'm guessing. So
Because in your
let's
list box over on the right, you've got 3 command bars listed.
which one? Which one
The
here?
list box over on the right? No, it's the
Yep.
right. Right over on the right.
Oh, this. Yeah, right. This is right. Hey, I put this thing on here so you can see what command bars are listed in the current database. Thank you for
But it's
pointing out what
answering
I
your
did there.
questions, Jeff. That answers your question.
Yeah, so if I remove one, let's try remove the command bar here. And let's say we'll call it new, and we'll just add a button. And then, oh yeah, see, it came to the bottom. Okay. Hey, you guys got it. Awesome. So that's how you can add them downward in a row like that. If you wanted to, not make them go across, you would just have to use a different command bar name each time, and then, whatever name of the object you want.
So does that
Not
mean
so
it's a
much easier.
different command bar?
Yeah, it is. It's right.
Really?
And that's right.
Different.
But it doesn't matter in Access. It does in with the ribbon. It doesn't matter because in old Access, remember the command bars, like in VBE, you could grab them. Let's see here. Like I'll just give an example. You can grab them. Like this is an example of a command bar. Like Adrian was showing. This is a command bar. And in Access, in the old version, you could drag these things around and put them anywhere. But in the current version of Access, they just go to the add-ins tab. So you can't really move them around like you could before.
Jeff, can I ask you to create a 4th one so that we can see what happens? Because we've got
Let's try new 2.
new 2.
So
Oh,
it
that's
actually
okay.
it put a group break
Separator.
there.
No, it's not a group. It's a completely different toolbar.
Yeah, right. Right, but if let's see if actually, yeah, and then watch this. We'll go 4. And then we'll do 5, and it'll have another line there, right? So it's like a new group, I guess. But you can't move these things around.
No.
I wish it would allow you to label this too.
No, that's the deep. That is what Access calls it. That is telling you that these are your custom toolbars.
Right. I wish they would allow us to,
You can name. You can
name groups.
If you hover over one of those command bars. So a bit, like that. It'll tell you new 5 : test 1.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that helps.
It tells you that.
It'd be nicer if it had we could name it on the group though. But yeah, that's nice.
I'm not gonna go to the Access team and say, we think you should spend a lot of time working on your command.
The reality of the situation is it's an easy fix, but yes, it is a lot of work.
Yeah, and you know what? This is all really good stuff, and I think Jeff should just show us in another presentation.
No, I'll just send you guys all this example. I was going to put it up there for you guys to play with. We don't need another presentation. I think
I know. We got to
here.
work on December 1st, right?
So here we go. We are officially out of this presentation into future. Ron is up next. Ron, would you like to take a couple of minutes and talk about your upcoming presentation?
Yes, I can do that.
And then I'll ask Greg.
See if I can share my screen.
And then I'll ask Jeff.
Do you see my
I just remind people that cameras are no longer forbidden.
We're still recording.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
Fine. If you,
I wanted to capture
George,
this bit about the upcoming.
Cool.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll turn mine off in that case.
You see my first slide?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to talk about is that we're looking to move our databases to SQL Server. Currently, they're all Access backends, and we wanted to be able to capture the user ID, but make it so only the application could write to the database. We've had people who got smart and opened up the tables and started editing, which could make a huge mess of your data. I didn't want to have a login screen, so I wanted to emulate the sign-on of Active Directory login or integration, but use the cache connection system that quite a bit of good information on. And so I've been working with Access quite a long time. And most of the stuff we do with is integrating with the CAD system and some of the accounting software. So we have been using SQL Server is based in the database I'm testing it against is basically a ability for the database the CAD software to access the database. It's been running for I think 4 months now. I don't think the user's ever seen a issue with it yet, or even noticed the change, the speed improvement with the new SQL Server. In fact, today is or yesterday is the first time I've seen a log entry with a drop connection. Basically, a little bit of work in SQL Server, a fairly simple class to manage the logins. So I'm going to go through and show you a sample application, how you set up SQL Server, how the Access modules work, and a step through of the login process. One, I can show you the simple database logins. Also showing that the cache connection is only on each instance for Access. And if you allow your database to close, that connection is still active, that cache is still active, and another database could open and get to that data. So we've got to make sure you shut down your application if you want to keep it secure. My sample database also, you would want to be careful with it because I'm actually running this computer I'm on right now is a non-domain computer. I can run the application and it will fail to log in because my account isn't correct, but I can actually type my account name, verify it, and now I'm logged in. Obviously, you wouldn't want the users to be able to do that. Any questions? So the SQL Server setup, I can open up the actual SQL Server. We'll go through the setup and the stored procedures and the administrator account that's being used.
And
Question?
well, we're looking forward to hearing more about it in more depth next month. I'm looking at encrypting the credentials. That looks particularly interesting to me.
Yep. Does work pretty well. It's really easy to use to set up new user accounts and remove old accounts.
It looks really interesting, Ron, although I have a little problem with your title because your title indicates that you're converting the front end when it seems like what you're doing is converting the back end.
Oh, you're right. I got to change
No,
that.
it is. No, what it says is connect Access front end to SQL.
Oh, correct.
Oh,
Convert, connect.
I totally misread.
Yep.
You're right, George, but I still think there is opportunity for clarification.
Yeah, you're right about that. Okay, great. So thank you. We'll look forward to learning more about that in more depth. There are a couple of things about it that I'm particularly interested in, including the encryption. And I think Greg is still here. You're up in November. I have a very sketchy outline of what you're going to talk about.
Oh, yeah. So what I was going to cover was, I think I said form resizing. And for that, what I didn't realize, because I've been talking with Kent, and Kent pointed out that Colin Riddington had done one. So I've done one as well. When I looked into Colin's, we both started with some 2006 or 7 code that was put up. I could see we both had the starting point, but it didn't work for me in all circumstances, and there were some issues with it. And that was trying to resize controls that have childs and parents. So like frames, for example, things like that. So I've done some code to fix that. One improvement that Kent has suggested is that my form resizing doesn't work on the fly. So what I mean is, when it opens up fine, it looks at the screen resolution and will resize. But what if you've got 2 monitors and you drag your window or your form to the other screen? It wouldn't automatically resize. And Kent has sent me something to play with. So I'm not sure I would have that resolved But the challenge I've got in that is that how a form becomes self-aware that it knows that it's been dragged to another monitor. Okay, and that's what I'm kind of wrestling with in the moment. I can't see an event that happens when you grab sort of the header and then drag it over to another screen. How it knows that that has happened and then triggers an event to say, I will now resize myself according to the monitor that I'm currently on. So if anyone's got any thoughts on that, I'd really be interested.
Hi,
think,
Greg. I wrote a resizing program, although I never published it because I wrote it for a client. But one thing that I found was I could not resize options in an option group because they just don't have the properties to move them around. And so my client just ended up not using option groups.
Well, I think I've got that one. And the challenge for me, I wrote all the code and I thought this is all logical. It should work, ran it. It didn't work. What I mean, options wouldn't behave. Option groups wouldn't behave with the controls in it. And one of the reasons is you have to do things in the right order. So the things inside the options, the option group, need to be resized first because they push around the parent. If they get resized before the option group, they're going to push around, regardless of what you tell the option group to resize to. The child objects, I call them, or controls, will actually push around the parent, being the option group.
Oh, that sounds too much like real life.
This sounds like my
exactly.
granddaughter.
Yeah, exactly. So the solution is I would record all of the dimensions of the controls into an array, and then you resize them to zero width, zero height, and then you resize your option group, so it's large enough to hold the children, move the children to the new position that you want them, and then you resize them and using the dimensions that you put into your array and then applying the resize factor. So that's the way I think that seems to work. The code also handles navigation controls because they were problematic, and I use them, and a lot of people are against them, don't like them. I like them in certain scenarios, for menus and things. So that wouldn't work initially when I first tested the code that I was just trying to steal. And it wouldn't behave with option groups. It wouldn't behave with navigation controls. So, but I seem to have handled that. But the challenge I've got is I would like it to auto resize when it's shifted. I've put in the chat a little image, and this is the approach that I'm thinking of. I'm not sure if you can bring that up on the screen. If somebody
anyone can just click on that icon or that image and see it full size.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that the image that I've got is just a rectangle, and got the red at the top, which is what you're going to drag, but there's no event for that. But what I'm thinking of doing is putting a line just below, and if that line is crossed over, then we have a blue rectangle. So I'm not sure if you're all seeing the image that I've put into the chat.
Well, can we kind of save this for your presentation in November?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
I was just trying to get feedback and some ideas.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. If somebody does have time to look into it, to give you feedback before that session, that would be very helpful for all of us. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, Greg, we were going to have another little session looking at that, because one of the problems I saw with the form resizer was that it was trying to use standard modules, whereas each form really should have a class instance.
Right.
So a class that looked after each individual one.
Right.
Yep.
In fact, I was quite surprised that it worked so well without doing that, because you're trying to use the same variables for every form, and I don't know how it worked.
Yeah. Well, let's
Yep.
hope we get that answer soon. So that kind of brings us back to Jeff and Crystal, and I think we have a commitment from the two of them to do a December presentation.
We will be there, George.
All right. I hesitate to.
I'm sorry about just like throwing you out there, Jeff.
Yeah,
But
I know there's some.
do it, and you already wrote it, and I just think you should show it.
Yeah. So what exactly are
Fine.
you going to show?
Who do you want to talk first?
Jeff can go first. Let's try not to drag this out to 2 full hours of recording, though.
Yeah, I was going to say this should be really short. Honestly, I just, I will show the Access add-in, or sorry, the Com add-in that I made in Visto through based on Crystal's word properties application that she showed in the group. I don't know when that was, earlier this year. Was that like January or February? I don't know when. But I made a little Com add-in for it through Visto. I didn't make a pure. That was one of the kind of the questions that came up in the email. Crystal, that's why I wanted to talk to you in person about this, Crystal, because I was a little unclear on exactly what you really want to see. I mean, do you want to see a pure COM solution like made in C++, or you want to see a COM solution made in Visto? I mean, there's a lot. When you say COM add-in, that's a pretty broad thing.
Yeah. I think showing what you did, Jeff, is perfect.
Okay.
Because you had some issues and you could cover what those were.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I thought, first I'll just show some access add-ins, which aren't so easy, but relatively they're really easy to
Oh,
make
yeah, they're a piece of cake.
add-in. But
Absolutely.
the com add-in
Compared to the COM add-in. But in the Visto ones are really the ones that, is what, Office is using right now. You can still make like a purely COM-based COM add-in, just implementing, you have to implement like 5 COM override event methods. And then once you do that, you can use these, these add-ins on any COM-based program, really, that supports COM
that's
add-ins.
awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
to be able to do that is awesome, but obviously if people just really want something for access, then they can go the easy route. And then if they want something that can be used all across Office, they can pay more attention to you.
Right, exactly. That's really what the Visto add-ins are really about, making add-ins for, the other apps, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook. Actually, I don't even know if Outlook supports them anymore. Outlook is in a weird state right now. So I don't know what is, and that's another thing to consider here too. I know we're talking about COM add-ins now, but the year's like 2024. And, you got to wonder if all this stuff is going to go away at some point soon.
It's gone away for what is called the new version of Outlook, because that doesn't support it. But there's still the old version is still there that does support it.
Right. Yeah, right. And, they got new versions of basically all the apps like Word and, these online versions and all that stuff. If everything was just to be purely online at some point, then, all these COM add-ins go away.
Okay.
Those online versions are so broken leg.
Can I break in again? Crystal, I'm going to interrupt you again. I'm gonna turn off the recording now. I think
good.
Before I do that, I want to thank Adrian again for
thank you, Adrian,
sharing that with us, and Jeffrey and everybody else who contributed expertise.
Great presentation.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the next 2 or 3 months, especially because I think what I'm seeing is an expansion of access in ways that we can all benefit from if we just keep our eyes and our ears and our minds open. So with that, I will go ahead and turn off the recording.